This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode, I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 393. It's another Chats with Locals episode and we are headed to Taiwan. Before we start, I'd like to pay my respects to the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation where I'm recording this podcast today. So, this is our second Chats with Locals episode. We're moving from Iceland over to Taiwan, another island, another place I have loved visiting in the past and hope to return to. And like last time, I have found 3 people who live in Taiwan to chat with, which is, of course, a fabulous way to learn more about a place. Before we get to my guests, I'd love to thank the very appropriate sponsor for the Chats with Locals series, which is Slowly. Slowly is a pen pal app. It's a great modern-day replica of the joy of sending letters to people around the world. I've been using it for most of this year and I love it, and I'll tell you more about it during the episode. So in the last couple of months, I've been really lucky to have conversations with 3 people in Taiwan, and I'm going to share parts of our chats here. So our 3 guests were firstly a Taiwanese woman named Janet, who was actually introduced to me by a long-time listener and previous guest, Carol Anna, who moved to Taiwan a few years back. I also am speaking to a Canadian man named Eddie who has lived in Taiwan for almost 25 years, who I actually met on a Reddit thread about podcasting. And finally, I chat with a Taiwanese man named Jackie, who was born and raised in Taiwan's capital, Taipei. And Jackie works for the Taiwan 1,000 Miles Trails Association. And I was introduced to Jackie via our local Bibbulmun Track Foundation, which is a kind of a sister organisation to the Taiwan 1,000 Miles Trail. It was so exciting to chat to all these Taiwanese locals. My own experiences of Taiwan are brief, but fabulous. And certainly when I chatted with these people, I was reminded of many of them. Many years ago, back in 2002, while I lived in Japan, I took a trip to Taiwan, mostly because I was curious about it as a place which I knew of, even as a small child, because everything said made in Taiwan when I was growing up. So that was one of the reasons. Since then, once I moved back to Australia, I had the pleasure of teaching English to many Taiwanese students in Perth, and they were always some of my favourites and really friendly. But, of course, I wanted to know more from locals, especially modern-day locals, and I started by asking my guests what they like about living in Taiwan. And the first to answer is Janet, who lives in the southern city of Kaohsiung.
I live in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. It's my hometown. I originally born here and living here like 30 years. I like this city because it's really easy to get into ocean, beach, and mountain. Of course, I'm local, so I'm not a tourist, so it's easy for me to go anywhere. I've also thought people in south of Taiwan is more welcoming people, even to local, not only for foreigner.
So I was born in Canada. I'm a first-generation Canadian. My parents are from Mexico. I came to Taiwan in about 2002, I think. So I've spent most of my adult life, I think it's over half now, my life I've spent in Taiwan. And I came here because I come from a really small town in Canada. There's not that much work in my town, but I kind of wanted to get out of Canada. My family said, go back to Mexico. So I'm like, well, I want to do something else. Always wanted to go to Asia. I looked at China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, and I thought Japan, Korea, they both snow. So where I live, it snows. No more snow for me. And I thought Taiwan, I'd like to learn Mandarin. And I thought tropical island, that sounds great. I thought I'll come here first, maybe try different countries afterwards. And now it's been 20 plus years. So it was a good decision.
In a way, I can't really say what I like about living in Taiwan, but Taiwan is my home and I can't imagine myself living other places. Because of my work, I have to go on international business trip quite often. But I came to realize that whenever I come back to Taiwan, I must have a bowl of braised pork rice and enjoy some spicy hot pot. I think this is just what home means to you.
So after Janet there, you heard Eddie and then Jackie. Now, they all had different answers about why they like living in Taiwan, but when I moved on to ask them all about what makes Taiwanese people different from others, there were quite a few commonalities. This time we're starting off with Jackie's thoughts.
I think the typical trait of Taiwanese is we are very considerate in a way. There's a common saying in Mandarin is that the most beautiful landscape in Taiwan is the people. So I think the most obvious way that this thing is embodied is when we see foreigners in Taiwan, we would always use their language to address them, to greet them, instead of assuming that you know Mandarin. For example, when I meet you, I might use English. When I meet, I don't know, other people, I would try to use whatever language I can come up with.
I think we are more real. Like, Japanese, they are covering their real feeling. They won't told you it's rude. They won't told you. But Taiwanese is just more real. How we will say it out. We are more like in order. Like if we will line up for like bus or like transportation, we can wait for it. And we'll maybe try to be nice to everyone. Like I told you in the email, one time my motorcycle broken on the road. I'm just like, oh, what can I do? I don't know where's any like a motorcycle shop there. And just uncle just randomly like a hero, he just like pushed me, used his leg to push me to a motorcycle shop, and he didn't leave right away. He made sure everything's fine and he leave. So I think it's really sweet.
Taiwanese people are very welcoming and they're very curious. So, for example, we have the restaurant. In Canada, if something new opens up, there's not too much of a buzz. People will wait for a while to see if it sticks around. In Taiwan, if something new opens, they want to be the first person to go. There's lineups. For example, if Taiwanese people see a lineup, they're like, wow, they will actually line up without knowing what it is. They'll just line up and be like, if there's this much of a line, it must be great. So that's one of the big differences. But Taiwanese, when you come in, they're very welcoming. They try to speak English. They want to learn it. They see you, like, even if you're outside, if people are kind of like Taiwanese people will be around you and not talking to you, they will speak to each other in English. So it's always this weird phenomenon where you hear them speaking Mandarin and then they kind of like see you, then they switch to English. I think really welcoming, very, very like food centric, like very foodie people. They like that a lot here. Just very curious. They definitely want to know about the new restaurant. They see you and they'll ask, where are you from? Everybody's very friendly. They want to chat. Genuinely, I think very curious and they want to learn.
A lot of these observations about Taiwanese people being friendly and quite outgoing and keen to speak English with visitors. Absolutely, that's my experience too, both in Taiwan and when I taught Taiwanese students here. But that saying that Jackie mentioned, the most beautiful landscape is the people, is just wonderful. Although I have to say the actual physical landscape of Taiwan is pretty awesome too, but we'll get to that. Now, the next thing I asked my guest about was their favourite tradition in Taiwan. And we start off with Eddie, who, of course, can compare to his upbringing in Canada.
In the West, probably in Australia too, Christmas is like the big one. For here, there's not really anything going on for Christmas. Their Christmas is Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year. It's usually about like a week to 10 days, maybe up to 2 weeks. And that's kind of like the big family thing. And they have traditions where everybody kind of goes back home. And so Taipei is like the big city, and Taipei is really empty because there are obviously a lot of people from Taipei, but mostly people travel from Kaohsiung or from Tainan or something, and they come to Taipei to work because it's the big city. So people leave the big city, they go home. The first day you go to the husband's family and you do like the big dinner thing, and then I believe the second day you go to the wife's family and do the big thing. So it's kind of like 2 to 3 days of just like family hopping, I would say, and you just have these big meals, and it's pretty fun. It's like 2 or 3 days in a row of Christmas, which is pretty cool. And then everybody has like a week off, and that's really the only time off that people get. I mean, there are long weekends here and there, but that's the one time where people get to do their thing and people travel, people go down south. That's for me the biggest one. There's a lot of really cool temples here, and they have a lot of like ceremonies where, they need to take, the god of the temple. They got to take him out, for a stroll. So they'll have these, it's almost like a parade. They'll kind of parade around the town. It'll be really loud and firecrackers. And it's a pretty cool thing. It's a cool thing to watch.
My favorite, like, traditional thing is Lantern Festival. Because Lantern Festival is kind of like government. Every year they choose one city to be a major host. So that city will spend a lot of money or government will support them. So they will make a lot of cool, huge lantern, like dragon, like really massive dragon. So this year is horse year. So I think they're going to put like huge horse lantern in the middle of the event.
By absolute luck, not planning, when I went to Taipei 20 something years ago, it was Lantern Festival time. And so I got to see this parade and I was blown away. It was amazing to see the constructions and the different kind of shapes. And like, it was so cool. Yeah, I can see why that's a favorite.
I've never attended this event myself, but I would like to recommend the Mazu pilgrimage. I'm not sure if you have heard of this before.
No.
Well, Mazu pilgrimage is a kind of a religious event. It's a folk religion, and it's common in southeastern China and Taiwan. So basically, Mazu is the goddess of the ocean. This is a folk religion, so legend has it that in order to save her drowning family, she sacrificed herself, and then the Chinese emperor made her into a goddess in a way. So after the legend, sailors and fishermen would pray to Mazu for a smooth sailing on the sea. So for the pilgrimage event, there are several Mazu temples all around Taiwan, and they would all host this event. So it often takes about 9 days for Mazu to travel around Taiwan in her pelican, which is like a chair, to travel around. And there will be 5 people or more carrying the pelican with the statue sitting inside. And during the pilgrimage, millions of people would follow the procession for good luck. Some people would even bow down in front of the pelican, and then they would allow the pelican to travel above their body. So that kind of means that Mazu is blessing you. For the 9-day pilgrimage event, they would often walk over 300 kilometers.
Oof.
And there isn't any designated route. Every day, or I think once or twice, they would pray to Mazu and ask which road she wants to take. So this is quite an organic event. And along the procession, along the pilgrimage way, you can also see marathon-like supplies, because if you have attended some marathon events, you will see people offering drinks and foods. And for this Mazu pilgrimage, you can even see people offering their houses for the pilgrims to stay in.
Wow.
So this also goes back to the considerate thing that I mentioned earlier. So I think this is a major religious event in Taiwan and a great way to experience the hospitality of Taiwanese people.
I'd not heard anything about the Mazu pilgrimage before, but I did a bit more research and found it absolutely fascinating. I'll add a video to the show notes, but one point I loved from what I learned was that small rural towns that have been suffering from having all of their young people move to the cities are often places on the Mazu pilgrimage route, and that having all these extra visitors for the pilgrimage is a big economic boost. So, good news all round. A quick break in this Chats with Locals episode to thank the sponsor of this series, the pen pal app named Slowly. Now, you know I only recommend stuff I love. I have to confess I've got quite addicted to using Slowly, but in a good way. It is completely different to just like a messaging app. So when I send a letter to a pen pal, it takes time to arrive, a couple of days or so, depending on how far away my pen pal lives. So instead of just writing, a short message or a few lines, everyone I've met, and me too, takes time to write a longer, more meaningful letter. I have in fact been writing to a pen pal in Taiwan for quite a few months, and so we've been able to discuss some of the similarities and differences in our countries. For example, recently we were discussing the in-home support that the government pays for, in this case for my pen pal's elderly mother, and it seems fairly similar to the system in Australia, different to many other places, and I love learning about these things. And of course, corresponding with her has given me extra reasons and more desire to revisit Taiwan soon. You can download Slowly for free, but I'll also leave a link in the show notes for an extra special offer, or you can find that by going to notaballerina.com/slowly. The next question I asked my guests was about what surprises visitors to Taiwan.
People are surprised that Taiwan is a very mountainous island with over 260 mountains towering 3,000 meters. In terms of our total landmass, this is a very high percentage of high mountains in Taiwan. And because the active plate movement, the plates colliding into each other, making mountains higher, So these mountains would actually to continue to grow taller.
Wow.
So the highest peak now is about 3,900 meters, but we believe that it will grow taller and one day you'll be over 4,000 meters, for example.
Wow.
Taiwan is a very tropical island, but these beautiful mountains offer us a very diverse natural landscape, and it kind of brings the diverse ethnicity and language in play. And I think the landscape itself is, I think, the most surprising thing that people think about when they think about Taiwan. And I do have a recommendation for that. A novel titled Taiwan Travelogue just won the International Booker Prize. I believe that they
Yes.
already have Australian editions there.
I'm literally reading it this week.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I think the English level has improved a lot in the last 20 years. I think people are surprised by that. I think if you go to a very busy, like the downtown sort of area, people are amazed how modern everything is and how you're able to get more and more, you can get Mexican food, Indian food, lots of Japanese restaurants. I think the availability of stuff here is amazing. And I think the craziest thing is the convenience. In Taiwan, let's say your phone bill, your electricity bill, whatever bills you get, you can take those bills. First of all, there are 7-Elevens like almost on every block, 7-Eleven, Family Mart, and you can take your stack of bills, go into 7-Eleven, get yourself like a bag of chips, get yourself a coffee, give them your bills. They scan your bills. You just pay everything there. Your speeding tickets, your parking tickets, everything. I don't even know where else you would pay them because I pay them there. Convenience is crazy. And of course, you always have to mention the safety. Safety and convenience are probably the top two things that people mention on my podcast. It's super convenient, but the safety, especially for women, but there's a lot of women here even from Canada, US, Australia, where it's obviously pretty safe. Like, for example, Central, South American, Latin American, have some Brazilian people on the podcast, and the women are just like, they can go out at midnight and grab themselves a coffee or whatever at a 7-Eleven. Or I had an American customer that used to come all the time, and he would drink a lot. And, halfway home, he would just kind of like see a park bench, and he would take out his cell phone and, his keys and, all his stuff, his wallet, and just kind of lay him out there and then just go to sleep on the bench. And nobody touches anything. It's crazy. You can go to a Starbucks or something like that. And, you have your laptop there, you have your coffee, you got to go to the bathroom. You just leave all your stuff there. No one touches it.
I've heard it from my husband because for local, I don't know. But to my husband, he been here for 3 years. He was sometimes still scared by the parades, temple parade in the morning. They will shoot fireworks. And he was like, it's a gunfight or China attack us. He freaked out, but it's just firework.
In the morning, though, there's fireworks. Even.
Yeah, because the parade probably start very early, 7 or 8. So they will shoot a firework and make noisy. And people just, dun, 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 make noisy. And
now, of course, another issue that visitors to Taiwan might wonder about is how locals think they fit into the world. By many measures, Taiwan, which actually is officially known as the Republic of China, as distinct from its bigger neighbour, the People's Republic of China, is its own country with its own government, elections, military, passport, etc. But the United Nations no longer recognises Taiwan as a country, and only a small number of other countries officially do. So it's tricky, and I chatted to Jackie about this issue.
Taiwan has always been a very contested land for people. Something I like about being a Taiwanese is that nothing is given. I have to fight for everything that I want to gain. This is the mentality that I think I like about being a Taiwanese and living in Taiwan.
Can I ask a question? So if I was making a list of the countries I have been to, I say Taiwan is a country I have been to. When you guys are in Taiwan, what do you say?
Well, this is an interesting question because even in Taiwan, the national identity can sometimes be different. I would say for my generation and about maybe 60% of the Taiwanese people would identify ourselves as Taiwanese. Taiwan is an independent country, but we do have some people who lean towards the Chinese side of things. Although they are not claiming that Taiwan is part of China, but there are still some people who believe that. And there are some historical and cultural incentives for them to believe so, because as a matter of fact, actually, a large group of people came to Taiwan after the KMT, the Kuomintang, they lost the civil war to the Communist Party. So there are some people who came from China and who identify themselves as Chinese. So that's all right with me. But this spectrum is very complicated. For example, myself, my grandparents came from China, but now they have a grandson who identifies himself as Taiwanese.
Right.
When I say my generation, I'm mainly thinking about people in their 20s all the way to people who are in their 50s or 60s. This group of people are the main forces and the main believers that Taiwan is an independent country, I would say.
My final question for my fabulous guests in Taiwan was, what should travellers know before visiting?
Because it's tropical island, you need to be careful about mosquito and sunburn. You need to bring umbrella or the sunscreen and mosquito spray, and also raincoat, because sometime in summer there's typhoon, so it will be a little bit dangerous. Actually, our Taiwanese English is not very good generally. People might be able to talk like vocabulary, but they cannot put the sentence together. Maybe they will be, or they will try to help, but they're not able to speak. If you lost, then people will just bring you to there. They won't. They will just not only show you on the map. They will just like, come follow me, come follow me, kind of like that. So you need to, maybe you want to communicate with local people. You need to buy like a translation tool or something.
I think the season to visit and the weather are the most important things you need to know before visiting Taiwan. Like I said, Taiwan is a very tropical island, so normally it gets hot and humid by the beginning of May all the way to late October. We do have typhoons in July, August, and even September, so places can be closed and you might experience some unpleasant weather if you visit. And aside from that, we do have like constant plate movement. So we have small earthquakes all year round. And I remember when we hosted a German hiker a few years ago, on the day of her arrival, we had a big earthquake hit. And she never experienced any earthquake in Germany. So she was kind of, what's going on now? And remember, on the day of her departure, we have is that a typhoon or something like that? And she was kind of like, oh
no.
So this is how Taiwan greets me, huh? You greet me with an earthquake and you send me off with a typhoon. So nature can be unforgiving sometimes, but anyway, the months and the seasons are the most important thing when people need to know when they visit Taiwan.
In Taiwan, it's very difficult to find clothes. Even when you're kind of somewhat in shape, it's very hard to find clothes. I remember taking my mom to a night market and they had the, those Chinese dresses, those silky sort of Chinese dresses. They call them qipaos. And my mom's Mexican. She's not like huge, but she's not like super skinny. And in Asia, everybody's so skinny here. And she's like, oh, you think they'll have something my size? I'm like, I don't know, Mom. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So we go into the store and, we ask and the lady looks at my mom. She's like, no, just shaking it. No, clothes are tough.
Excellent advice from Eddie there. If you're planning to shop in Taiwan, it could be tricky. I remember having exactly the same problem when I lived in Japan. I was probably at my skinniest ever, but I'm relatively tall and I could never get jeans or trousers that fitted. I had to wait until I was traveling somewhere else. And from Janet and then Jackie, some great tips about the weather and the best times of year to go as well. Thanks again to Slowly for sponsoring the Chats with Locals series. If you think pen pals around the world might suit you too, you can download it in the App Store or on Google Play. It's free to download and use, but if you get it via the link in the show notes or at notaballerina.com/slowly, you will have access to a 30% discount on the annual Slowly Plus package with exclusive features like advanced filter options for finding pen pals in specific places, maybe Taiwan, premium stamps and more. So thanks so much for listening to episode 393 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. A big thanks to all my guests and to Slowly, the sponsor. Don't forget notaballerina.com/slowly for all the details there. So as to my guests, thanks so much to Eddie. You can find Eddie at his restaurant, Eddie's Cantina, a Mexican restaurant in Taipei, at eddiescantina.com. And his YouTube channel with the podcast is at Eddie Live. Thanks also to Jackie Tao of the Taiwan 1,000 Miles Trail Association, tmitrail.org.tw. And also a shout out to the Bibbulmun Track Foundation. The Bibbulmun Track is a 1,000-kilometre track which runs from here in Perth down to Albany on the south coast of Western Australia, bibbulmuntrack.org.au. Without them and Kath, who spoke at one of their nights about hiking in Taiwan, I would not have found Jackie. So thank you. And a huge thanks to Carol Anna for sending us the lovely Janet. I'm also going to leave a link to an interesting article I found from the conversation on is Taiwan a country or not? And I mentioned, or actually Jackie mentioned, the fabulous novel Taiwan Travelogue. That and some other reading about Taiwan is on my Taiwan reading list, so I will leave a link to that as well. If you have your own experiences in Taiwan, do come and share them with us on the Facebook group or the LinkedIn group. Just look for Thoughtful Travellers on those platforms. And there will be more information. I'm also going to do a Substack post about my own longish ago experiences in Taiwan, complete with a bunch of photos on Substack. You can find that at thoughtfultravel.substack.com. So just a reminder, all of this info in the show notes at notaballerina.com/393. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.